The story kicks off with Ryoma Takabayashi, an 11-year-old kid, talking about his life. He lives alone in the forest scratch Thave lives in a house in the forest with, like, 1,000 slimes. Ryoma explains that slimes evolve differently depending on what he feeds them. For example, there are sticky slimes, the green ones, that ooze some kind of fluid you can use to make threads, which are handy for hunting. Then there are acid slimes that can melt tough stuff like bones. Poison slimes show up when slimes eat poisonous weeds and survive. They're tough as hell and multiply super fast. Cleaner slimes eat dirt and make everything spotless, while scavenger slimes are the gross ones that chow down on trash and poop to make fertilizer. Even though Ryoma sometimes runs into goblins and thieves in the forest, he still thinks his life is pretty chill. One day, while walking through the woods, he spots a group of knights trying to help their injured buddy. The mage, Camel, is out of magic and can't heal the guy, so they're thinking about rushing him to town when Ryoma shows up. One of the knights immediately pulls a sword on him. What a jerk. Ryoma's not great at talking to people since he's been on his own, so he sounds kinda like a caveman. He manages to tell them he's got a potion that can help. Camille checks it out, sees it's legit, and gives it to the injured guy, Hughes, who drinks it. Ryoma then suggests they bring Hughes to his house so he can rest. The knights agree but start wondering what a kid his age is doing alone in the forest. That's when they run into a swarm of slimes, and the knights freak out, drawing their swords. Ryoma stops them and explains that the slimes are his buddies. The knights apologize for the mix-up since they didn't know the slimes were his familiars. Once that's cleared up, they follow Ryoma to his place. When they get to a mountainside, Ryoma uses some barrier magic to reveal the path to his house. Inside, the knights notice everything is set up for just one person and wonder if he really lives alone. Ryoma comes out with more potions and tells them they can take as many as they need, since he can easily make more. The soldiers are totally thrown off when Ryoma serves them water with ice cubes in it, like, what? Then they finally get to the introductions, and the leader of the group tells Ryoma his name is Reinbach Jamil. Turns out, the dude's a duke, and runs the Jamil Duchy. Ryoma's like, whoa, and bows his head to show respect. The rest of the crew follows his lead and introduces themselves. We already know Camille and Hughes, but there's also Zeph, who's their scout, and Jill, the guy who pulled a sword on Ryoma earlier. Jill says sorry, but Ryoma's chill about it and doesn't take it personally. Reinhardt explains that they got jumped by bandits in the forest. After taking out the bandits, they ran into a bear, and Hughes got hurt. They were on their way to town to get him patched up when they ran into Ryoma. Reinhardt gets curious and asks Ryoma about his backstory. Ryoma says his grandparents, who were former adventurers, passed away 3 years ago. They told him to move to another village, but Ryoma doesn't seem like the kind of guy who vibes with people too much. You know? Camille pulls out this crystal ball thing that's supposed to show Ryoma's race, age, and skills. They're all like, no way this little dude has been surviving on his own for 3 years. When Ryoma touches the ball, it shows he's actually just 11 years old. He steps out for a bit, and that's when Camille tells Reinhardt about the insane skills Ryoma has. With the kind of mental toughness this kid's got, they're all wondering what the heck he's been through to make it this far. Reinhardt doesn't feel right about leaving Ryoma alone in the forest, so he decides to talk it over with his dad and come back later. By the next day, Hughes is all healed up, and it's time for the adventurers to hit the road. Before they leave, Ryoma gives Hughes another gross-smelling potion to drink so he can fully recover. Hughes tells Ryoma to swing by the town of Gaunago if he ever needs anything. Then the group takes off. After they're gone, Ryoma drops a bombshell. Everything he told them about his grandparents? Total lies. The first person to introduce himself from the group of newcomers is Reinhardt's dad, Reinbach Jamil. After him, Reinhardt's wife, Elise Jamil, introduces herself. Then there's Reinhardt's daughter, Eliaria, who he calls his princess. They've all shown up to thank Ryoma for helping Reinhardt out when he needed it. Reinhardt is surprised to see that Ryoma's slimes have multiplied since the last time he visited. Eliaria is curious about how Ryoma manages to keep so many slimes in his house, so he shows her. Turns out, he can merge them into one giant slime. A group of 100 slimes can combine into one big blob, and they can also shrink down to be super small. Elise is shocked that Ryoma managed to tame such a big monster, something that's been a real challenge for other monster tamers. Ryoma explains that he tames them one by one, and then combines them afterward. This method seems to solve a lot of the problems other tamers have been dealing with. Elise immediately suggests that Ryoma, being the oddball he is, should register with the Tamers Guild. The group heads into Ryoma's house to chat, and Reinhardt gives him a fancy clock as a thank you gift. They noticed Ryoma didn't have a clock in his house, so they brought him one. But there's another reason they came to visit. Eliaria wants to learn how to tame slimes like Ryoma. However, they didn't see any slimes on their way to his place. Ryoma pulls out a map and shows them where they can find slimes. Eliaria gets excited and asks Ryoma about the unusual slimes he has. Turns out, she's talking about the scavenger slime and the cleaner slime. Ryoma explains what these slimes do, leaving everyone amazed. He even demonstrates the cleaner slime's abilities by having it clean a dirty loincloth he got from a goblin he defeated. The loincloth is filthy, but the slime eats up all the dirt like it's no big deal. It's basically like a living washing machine that only eats dirt unless told to eat something else, like meat. After hearing all this, Eliaria decides that the first slime she wants to tame is the cleaner slime because she's so impressed. Ryoma says it's tricky to explain to a girl how to get a cleaner slime, so he tells the guys instead. When they hear the explanation, they realize it's kind of awkward, but Hughes, being the clueless guy he is, goes straight to the girls and tells them they need to take a bath and use their body dirt as bait to attract a cleaner slime. Taking the super straightforward approach gets him smacked across his ugly mug a few times. Basically, cleaner slimes are drawn to stuff that's sweaty. Eliaria thinks about asking one of the guards for help, but realizes she's got to step up and become a beast tamer herself. It's her dream, so she's got to do it solo. Not long after, Eliaria hops into the bath, scrubs herself clean, and collects the bath water in a container. She takes it to a spot where slimes hang out. Before long, she's back with a cleaner slime and a big old grin on her cute little face. In the next scene, Ryoma remembers how he tamed his first slime too. He named it after Tabuchi, one of his old, hard-working co-workers. Ryoma's chatting with some down-to-earth folks who suggest he tag along with them on their trip. He's been living solo in the forest for 3 years, and they figure it wouldn't hurt for him to get out for a bit. They're headed to a town called Gimel and plan to stay there for a while. The Duke's dad reassures Ryoma that he can come back to the forest anytime he feels like it. Ryoma's still mulling over his decision when Eliaria chimes in to nudge him toward going. Without overthinking it anymore, Ryoma decides to join them so he can check out the outside world. They mention that the butler, Sebas, will help him pack his stuff into their item box, but Ryoma surprises them by saying he's got his own item box. This leaves everyone even more impressed this kid just keeps showing off all kinds of cool magic. That night, Ryoma packs up everything he owns into his item box. The next morning, he's ready to roll and casts another barrier spell on his house to keep it hidden while he's gone. When it's time to leave, Sebas pulls the carriage out of his item box. Riding with the Duke's family, Ryoma talks about the different types of magic he can use. He mentions alchemy magic, which gets everyone curious since it's rare and kind of a well-kept secret these days. Hearing all this, Ryoma realizes he's got a lot to learn about this world, especially about what's okay to share and what's better left unsaid. As the days go by, the group travels by day and sets up camp to rest at night. Ryoma finds the journey pretty chill until it's not. The road they're supposed to take is blocked by a bunch of rocks that fell during heavy rain. The guards tell Reinhardt they need to get through this dangerous area fast because there are bandits lurking around. The only way to clear the path is with earth magic. When Ryoma hears about the landslide, he hops out of the carriage to check it out. He pulls a raincoat from his item box and tells a curious Eliaria that he made it himself using adhesive. Ryoma joins the soldiers, who are still scratching their heads about how to deal with the mess. Instead of wasting time talking, he jumps straight into action. Using his earth magic, he gathers the rocks and turns them into blocks, clearing the path so the carriage can get through. After 3 more days of smooth traveling, Ryoma and the Jamil family finally make it to Gimel. So, Gimul's supposed to be a mining town, but it's not doing too hot. Reinhardt swings by to check out which mines need to be shut down and which ones can keep on running. Later, Ryoma gets told he's got to hit up the church to grab his status board, which is basically like an ID. He rolls into the church's baptism room and meets this lady who explains how it works. She tells him to stick the board on this pedestal and touch the crystal to finish the baptism. Ryoma does what she says, and bam, there's this crazy bright light in the room. When he's back, the lady tells him to hide most of his stats on the board and only show his name, age, and race. Once he bounces out of the room, he links up with the Jamil fam, who've been hanging out waiting for him outside. Reinhardt's dad decides to drop some wisdom on Ryoma. Dude's got crazy skills, and it's clear that's gonna put a target on his back for people who want to use his powers. The only way to keep his abilities on the down low is to sign up at a guild and start building his rank and rep. After that, Eliaria gets curious and asks him how much magic juice he's packing. Ryoma casually says his magic capacity is 198,000, and Eliaria's jaw basically hits the floor. People with that much magic usually struggle to get the hang of it, so she's shook that Ryoma's handling it like it's no big deal. Turns out, Eliaria's got even more magic capacity than Ryoma, so she asks him how he got so good at it. Ryoma tells her to just mess around with magic whenever she's got free time. He even offers to teach her, which makes her super hyped. After that, they roll over to the Tamers Guild, which is for folks who can summon and control monsters. The guild also hooks its members up with info and job leads. Eliaria and Ryoma sign up, but when the guild finds out Ryoma's only tamed a bunch of slimes, they're like, yeah, it's gonna be tough for you to level up here, dude. Then the Duke's dad suggests they hit up the Adventurers Guild too. Ryoma had mentioned taking out some goblins in the forest before, and the guy figures that'll give him a little extra cred if he signs up there. When they get to the guild, Ryoma's told he's gotta prove his combat skills to register. He asks the Jamil fam if he should go all out, and they're like, heck yeah, go go for it. In the test area, the examiner tells him he's got 5 targets to hit and only 5 arrows, so he can't miss a single shot. Ryoma knows he's got to impress Eliaria and her fam, so he steps up, pulls back the bow like a pro, and nails every single target dead center. Even the examiner's blown away and lets out one of those impressed whistles. After passing his first test, the examiner tells Ryoma he's got to hit moving targets for the next one. Apparently, the person who came up with this test was a transfer from Earth and used a shotgun to do it. Ryoma's got 50 targets and 50 arrows to take them down. The whistle blows, and the targets start flying all over the place. Ryoma takes them out one by one, and even the last challenge, where 4 targets come at him at once, is a total breeze for him. Then, out of nowhere, the examiner sneaks up behind Ryoma and throws a knife at him. Ryoma senses it, grabs the knife mid-air, and chucks it right back at the guy. Thinking the test isn't over, Ryoma uses his earth magic to summon a weapon and charges at the examiner, but the guy quickly calls it off. Turns out, the knife throw is just a little trick he does to keep archers on their toes. The knife isn't even sharp, and Ryoma's the first person to ever throw it back instead of dodging it. The examiner introduces himself as Worgen, the head of the Gimel branch of the Adventurers Guild. Apparently, he personally ran the test because the whole Jamil family was watching, and he wanted to see what made Ryoma so special. Worgen tells everyone Ryoma passed the test and gives him a guild card with his rank on it. He puts Ryoma at G rank on purpose so he can work his way up. Ryoma then checks out the task board for jobs at his rank and picks one that involves cleaning. The next day, Ryoma packs up his slimes, which are perfect for cleaning, and heads to the house that posted the job. When he knocks on the door, he's completely floored when a cat beastkin named Mia answers. The house reeks so bad that the smell practically punches Ryoma in the face. Mia's super excited someone from the guild finally showed up, but all Ryoma can think about is whether he can actually handle this job. So, apparently, some giant trash pile ended up in Mia's house, and ever since, nobody's been down to take the cleaning job. First thing Ryoma does is get his scavenger slimes to chow down on all the garbage. Once that's handled, he dives into the main cleanup. A few hours later, boom, the house is spotless. Miss Catwoman is stoked with how well Ryoma handled it, and she even gives him a raise for crushing it. After finishing up with Mia's former trash palace, Ryoma heads back to the guild. He's totally blown away by how much he's getting paid. Turns out, Mia made sure to add an extra bonus in the contract. Then Worgen calls Ryoma into his office. Dude's impressed that Ryoma managed to tackle the mountain of garbage at Mia's place. To help Ryoma level up his skills, Worgen throws another job his way. This time, it's cleaning the communal toilets, aka the Pee Palace. The government's behind this one. People from the slums used to handle it, but they bailed when they realized the pay was trash. Even though Ryoma knows the job's kinda shady, he agrees to do it. Worgen promises he'll get a fat paycheck when it's done. Ryoma decides to loop Reinhardt in on the whole thing. When the ducal family hears about it, they're like, yo, something sketchy's going on here. They figure someone's been skimming money. Reinhardt sends Sabas to investigate ASAP. Reinhardt thanks Ryoma for speaking up, saying they might just uncover a huge crime thanks to him. Reinbach is straight up furious about the whole thing, saying whoever's behind it has been screwing over the citizens. He swears to get to the bottom of it and bring the guilty party to justice. The next day, Ryoma rolls up to the communal toilet. The place has 30 pits, and the stench is next level nasty. Even Ryoma, who's usually chill, has a hard time breathing. It's a massive job, but Ryoma's ready to tackle it. He sets up his slimes to get to work. Before heading in, he suits up in full protective gear to block out the smell. He starts on the first pit, and after a while, he gets it cleaned. That leaves him with 29 more pits to go. As he keeps cleaning, Ryoma realizes there's miasma in the area. He immediately rushes back to the guild, where the Duke's family is hanging out. He tells them about the miasma, but luckily, it hasn't spread into the environment. Ryoma reassures them that he cleaned himself up really well to avoid carrying any miasma with him. Still, the family's worried about him getting sick from all the gross stuff he's been exposed to. Worgen's stressing out because miasma is some nasty, polluted magic, but Ryoma's all in on scrubbing toilets to track down where it's coming from and shut it down. He just needs them to keep people out while he's working, and Worgen's like, yeah, we can handle that. The family's freaking out, worried Ryoma might get hurt doing this, but he reassures them he's the safest bet to deal with the miasma and keep everyone else safe. When Ryoma sees they're still uneasy, he pulls up his status board and shows off his resistance and recovery skills, basically saying, don't sweat it, I got this. Ryoma and his slimes are the MVPs for this job. Even Reinbach, being all humble, asks Ryoma to help out despite the risks. So, Ryoma gets back to work, and some adventurers are posted to guard the area and keep people away. Mia's one of them since she's part of the guild. The crew includes Jeff Grange, an old buddy of Worgen's, Asagi, a dragonute, Mazelia, a tiger beastkin, Celia, a rabbit beastkin, Lipin, who's into monster research, Walana, a dog beastkin, and Mia, a cat beastkin. Mia's super hyped because she sees this as her chance to pay Ryoma back for helping her before. As Ryoma keeps grinding away at the gross cleanup, his scavenger slimes level up and snag a new skill called gluttony, which speeds things up even more. The Duke's family sends over food and healing potions to help the adventurers out. Meanwhile, Reinhardt and his crew are digging through town records, trying to sniff out where fraud or embezzlement might be hiding. When Ryoma's halfway done, the adventurers tell him to take a break, but he's like, nah, I'm good. Dude's got a work ethic like iron and doesn't quit till the job's done. By the next morning, he's finished cleaning up, and Mia's the first to tackle hug him, nearly smothering him with her chest. Ryoma heads back to the guild to tell Worgen he's done. Worgen gives him props and promises a sweet payday for completing the quest. Ryoma's used to pulling late nights because of his brutal job back on Earth. His mom always stayed up to greet him when he got home, even though he told her not to. But then she passed away, and while he didn't cry, it left a huge hole in his heart. Coming home to an empty house was rough at first, but he eventually got used to it. Now though, things are different. He's got the Duke's family to come home to, and they're all genuinely happy to have him around. He feels so much love from them that he ends up crying without even realizing it. The family gets it and surrounds him with support. For the first time since he came to this world, Ryoma feels like he's truly happy. The next morning, Eliaria gets up bright and early. With help from her mom and the maids, she whips up a tasty breakfast. Once she's done, Sebas wakes up Ryoma, who's stoked to have food ready so early. He joins the family at the table, digs in, and gives Illyria props for the awesome meal. Illyria brings up the magic stuff, and Ryoma promises to help her out. On top of that, Ryoma's about to start magic lessons with Camille. Later, Camille takes the kids to a laid-back spot for training. Illyria's got a knack for ice and fire magic, which Ryoma thinks is pretty tough to learn. Ryoma kicks things off by showing Eliaria what she can do with her magic. He creates these cool bubbles that grab everyone's attention, including Eliaria and her family. Following Ryoma's tips, Eliaria manages to make bubbles too. Then Ryoma makes a giant bubble for them to mess around with. He's pumped that Eliaria, or Princess Pickles, is having a blast with everything he's teaching her. Next up, it's time for Camille to show Ryoma some fire magic tricks. Ryoma nails it on the first try and even outdoes his mentor by hitting the target harder. After fire magic, they move on to ice magic, and Ryoma works through all of it with Camille. Once they're done, Camille's out of ideas for what to teach him. That's when Sebas steps in and tells Ryoma he'll teach him space magic. Sebas asks if Ryoma knows any space magic besides his item box ability. Ryoma says he can use teleportation magic and shows off his skill, which Sebas thinks is pretty impressive. Sebas explains that Ryoma needs to learn more space magic, like warp and dimension home. He breaks down how warp magic works. It's basically traveling to a place you picture in your mind. Sebas demonstrates, and Ryoma nails it by teleporting to the top of a hill on his first try. Dimension home is like a souped-up item box that can hold more stuff and even has air inside so it can store living things. Ryoma realizes this could help him carry his slimes around more easily. After a bunch of tries, he finally creates a dimension home. He's stoked about it, and Sebas tells him his hard work paid off. By now, it's getting late, and Sebas says it's time to head back. Ryoma's been so into his training that he completely lost track of time. The next day, they roll out to the old North Gimel mine to teach Eliaria some combat moves. Turns out, in this family, everyone's got to throw down if a fight breaks out. On top of that, Eliaria is heading to a school in the capital to level up her skills. Once they get to the mine, the crew splits up. Hughes, Camel, and another night tag along with Eliaria and Ryoma into one part of the mine, while the rest of the squad checks out how bad the monster problem is in the area. Not long after, they bump into this massive mantis. Hughes explains that these things breed like crazy, so if you see one, there's probably a whole squad of them nearby. Eliaria steps up first, and even though her magic shots are kinda off, she manages to take it down with an ice arrow. Then, more mantises pop out of nowhere. Ryoma hardens himself up with a skill and charges straight at them. With his killer combat skills, he slices through them like they're nothing, like cutting up sardines. Afterward, the scavenger slimes clean up the mantis leftovers. Once they've taken out enough mantises for the day, they decide to head back. But then Eliaria spots a slime she calls a metal slime. Ryoma's like, wait, is that even a thing? Eliaria doesn't waste time. She traps the slime with an ice wall so it can't escape. She catches it, and Ryoma gives her props, saying she should make a taming contract with it. Eliaria hands the slime over to Ryoma to double check it. When they get outside, Ryoma notices there's iron in the soil. He does some alchemy magic and pulls metal straight out of the dirt. It's basically him showing off his alchemy skills to the group. He figures out the red soil's got iron in it. Eliaria is super into the metal because it's shiny like a mirror. After that, Reinbach takes Ryoma to a shop called the Morgan Trading Company. The merchant there, Serge Morgan, checks out the metal and says it's top-notch. He's impressed with Ryoma's alchemy skills and promises to handle selling the metal. Ryoma wants to keep it on the down low that he's the one making it, and Serge is cool with that. Reinhardt tells Serge to make sure all the profits go to Ryoma since he's the one who made it. Makes sense, right? Serge is trustworthy, so they're not worried. Ryoma feels good knowing everyone's got his back. They're like the family he never had. Later, the people who were stealing from the toilet funds get busted. After that, Worgen gives Ryoma a new job, clearing out monsters in the abandoned mine shafts. Ryoma teams up with other adventurers to take care of the monsters in those areas. Before heading out on the mission, Ryoma tells Eliaria he wants to test the metal slime's weak spots. Since it can't be hurt by physical attacks, he wants to see if poison will work on it. He tries 2 types of poison, but neither affects the slime. However, the slime reacts right away to acid acid, which makes sense, since it's common knowledge that acid can melt metal. Soon after, a group of adventurers shows up to remind Ryoma it's time to go. Illyria gives him a hug from behind and wishes him good luck on his mission. At the cave entrance, Worgen briefs the adventurers about the monsters they'll face: cave bats, cave mantises, and small rats. These monsters aren't strong on their own, but they tend to attack in swarms, which makes everyone a little nervous. The group reaches a path in the cave and decides to split up to cover more ground. When Ryoma is asked how many slimes he has, he casually mentions he's got over 4,000 of them, which surprises everyone. Not long after, Ryoma's group runs into a swarm of cave mantises. They wipe out the monsters in no time, leaving the adventurers a little disappointed because they were expecting more of a challenge. As they move deeper into the cave, they sense cave bats nearby. Ryoma tells the team he wants to try an experiment on the bats using a spell called the sound bomb, which none of them have heard of before. Before starting, Ryoma sets up a soundproof barrier around the team. Once that's done, he casts the sound bomb spell into the dark cave where the bats are. When they check it out, every single bat is dead. Turns out, the sound bomb is basically a massive blast of sound that knocks out the bats. Ryoma then orders his slimes to eat the bats' remains, and the slimes quickly clean up everything. With their part of the monster clearing done, the group heads out of the cave. When they get outside, they hear some news. Another team ran into a goblin horde and got injured. Apparently, there's a goblin village nearby, with over 500 goblins. Ryoma realizes they need to take out the goblins quickly before they can multiply. Worgen says they're planning to attack the goblins right away. The adventurers will surround the goblin village to stop any from escaping. A little later, Mia and another adventurer head to the village to lure the goblins out. The goblins angrily chase after the two, not realizing that Ryoma and the others have already dug a trench filled with poison slime potions to trap them. The squad of adventurers gets together to take on the rest of the goblins that didn't fall for their trap. But things aren't looking too hot because the acid slimes aren't breaking stuff down fast enough. Of course, Brainiac Ryoma's got a plan up his sleeve. He tells everyone to back off from the goblins because he's about to whip out a sound bomb. He covers his ears, sets it off, and boom, the goblins are left totally stunned. Then he orders his slimes to attack the goblins, and they go to town on him. Worgen catches on that they've got the upper hand now, and tells his crew to back up Ryoma and his slimes. Teamwork makes the dream work, and together they wipe out the goblins. By the end, they've taken down what's gotta be at least 2,000 goblins. They're still hyped up from their victory when the goblin commander shows up, and yeah, everyone's freaked. But then they realize there's even more goblins coming. Things are about to get real, so Ryoma tells his slimes to get ready. With one big charge, the slimes take out the goblins like it's no big deal. After the fight, Ryoma has his cleaner slimes tidy up his crew, getting rid of all the gross goblin grime, which, by the way, is apparently the nastiest stuff to clean off. Everyone's super impressed with how good the cleaner slimes are. Mia jokes that Ryoma could make bank if he started a laundry business. When they leave the cave, Ryoma gets more props for his healing slimes, which have been patching up the wounded adventurers. Turns out, these slimes have leveled up and can heal even faster now. The adventurers are all over Ryoma, thanking him for saving their butts and keeping them alive longer. At this point, he's basically a celebrity among them, whether he likes it or not. Because they took down the goblin commander, Worgen announces that everyone's getting a pay bump. On the way back to town, someone asks Ryoma what the healing slimes eat. He explains they only need water and use photosynthesis to make their own food. They're kinda weak, but super rare. Then the group asks if Ryoma's rank in the Tamers Guild has gone up, but nope, not happening anytime soon. Apparently, the guild thinks his slimes are useless, though the adventurers know better. They all hope Ryoma gets the recognition he deserves, cause the guy's busting his butt out here. Ryoma reflects on how far he's come and realizes meeting the Jamil family really turned his life around. Soon after, Ryoma heads home, and the Jamil family is stoked to have him back. They can't wait to hear all about his adventure. Later that night, Ryoma drops a bombshell on them. He thanks them for always having his back, but says he wants to step away from their support for now. He's determined to make it big on his own without anyone giving him a boost. Ryoma's trying to explain why he wants to break away from the fam. He doesn't want to turn into some spoiled brat who relies on them for everything. Ever since he met them, they've been taking care of him, and he feels like he's already getting too comfy. While he's pouring his heart out to the family, Hughes and the staff are low-key eavesdropping on the whole convo. Illyria, let's just call her Eli, isn't feeling great about this news. She doesn't want Ryoma to leave, but her parents actually get where he's coming from. Even Reinhardt's dad figures it's normal for Ryoma to want to live on his own someday. He's a guy, and guys do this kind of thing, it's just how it goes. But the family's got a few rules for him. He's got to keep in touch by sending letters, come visit them, so they know he's doing okay, and never hold back if he needs their help. Eli finally gives in, but throws in one more rule. They've got to meet up in 3 years, and again in 6 years. She's got a long school break in 3 years, and graduates in 6, so it lines up. Oh, And while they're still in town, Ryoma's gotta stay at the inn. He's not too hyped about that, but the family insists. Ryoma asks what the family's up to while they're in town. Reinhardt's dad says they're sticking around until the Grell frogs show up. These frogs are special, their skins used for armor, and their insides are good for medicine. Plus, the lemur birds are around during the same time. These birds are super rare and hard to catch or tame. Ryoma then tells the fam he wants to live in town as an adventurer and start a laundry business. Looks like he's finally taking the adventurer's advice about the biz. He's hoping to make some cash from it. That's when Hughes and the staff barge in, totally busted for listening in on the whole conversation. They jump in and say it's actually a solid idea since adventurers usually toss their gear when it gets too filthy. Some gear gets so gross it's impossible to clean. Reinbach says he'll talk to Serge to help Ryoma get things rolling. Reinhardt also asks Ryoma for a favor. He wants him to manage some abandoned mines whenever he's got free time. Ryoma's cool with it and thanks them for having his back. The next day, they all head to Serge to pitch the idea. Serge is all in and can tell it's gonna be a hit. To avoid any future drama, Serge suggests Ryoma register with the Merchant Guild and even offers to take him there right away. Ryoma's down, and they head out to make it happen. A little while later, they show up at the Merchant Guild, where Serge and Ryoma meet the guildmaster, Glisella. Glisella's an old lady, but she's sharp as a tack. She quickly figures out that Ryoma is trying to get his business registered early to avoid headaches down the road. She also knows his business is likely to make a ton of money. Not wanting to waste anyone's time, she pulls out the paperwork and tells him to fill it out. Once he's done, she brings out a map and assigns him a plot of land for his laundry shop. When Ryoma, Serge, and Eli check it out, they find an old, run-down building. Serge explains it burned down in a fire and has been sitting empty ever since. Ryoma actually thinks it's a great spot for his business since it's close to a residential area, not far from an industrial zone, and near the Adventurers Guild too, which is the cherry on top. Ryoma quickly decides to take the land. Serge promises to lend him some of his workers to help him get started. He also gives Ryoma some advice, telling him to work on his facial expressions because his emotions are way too easy to read. Serge says if Ryoma wants to be a good manager, he needs to learn to keep his feelings in check. Ryoma thanks him for the tip and, as a show of gratitude, promises to buy everything he needs for the shop from Serge. Right after that, Ryoma gets to work on building the shop. He puts his slimes to the task of tearing down the old building and clearing out the weeds. His plan is to build a shop with a dormitory for his workers to live in once they start. Construction kicks off, and thanks to his army of slimes, the new building goes up in no time. Ryoma asks Hughes and his crew for help with the flooring, and they're happy to pitch in. Even though Ryoma feels like he's asking for too much, Hughes reassures him, saying that friends help each other out. Once the flooring's done, some adventurers show up to help paint the walls. Turns out, Ryoma's last adventurer job earned him a promotion from G rank to E rank in the guild. With so many people helping, the painting is finished super quickly. They paint the building white to match the vibe of the laundry business. When asked what he wants to name the shop, Ryoma decides on Bamboo Forest Laundry Services, inspired by his real name, Takebayashi. To brighten up the area, he plants flowers and grass around the shop. Before opening, Ryoma plans to throw a small party to thank everyone who helped him get the place up and running. The next day, Ryoma kicks things off by inviting everyone who helped him build his business to a chill party he's throwing. Meanwhile, Serge shows up with the two people he promised to bring. Eli and the Jamil crew are busy cooking when Serge walks in with the two, who both have the same hair color. Serge tells everyone not to judge their boss by his age because, honestly, it doesn't matter. Ryoma shows up, and Serge introduces him to the pair. The guy's name is Callum Norad, and the girl's name is Carla Norad. Turns out, they're siblings. Serge explains that the two are the manager and assistant manager of one of his businesses, and he's confident they'll do a great job for Ryoma. After the intros are done, Ryoma takes them to where the real action is going to happen. He explains how the business will run. Each customer gets a sack for their stuff, and they'll get a claim tag so they can pick it up later. Ryoma shows them how it works. Cleaner slimes wash the clothes, metal slimes iron them, and green slimes fold them perfectly. Ryoma reassures them that the cleaner slimes can handle any kind of dirt, but they should always double check before handing clothes back to customers. After that, he gives them a tour of the building, pointing out areas that are off limits to customers. Soon, the guests start arriving for the party, and Ryoma asks the siblings to help out with hosting. Before long, the party's in full swing, and even the slimes are pitching in. Everyone's having a great time. When it's time for Ryoma to speak, the crowd goes quiet to listen. He's surprised and happy that people actually care about what he has to say, something that never happened in his old life. Back on Earth, he felt like a ghost, invisible to everyone, and no one gave a damn about him. Now, he's just glad he's no longer seen as the washed-up loser he used to be. Ryoma thanks everyone for coming and for their support, then officially kicks off the party. Some people congratulate him, while others seem more focused on stuffing their faces with food. Worgen and Glisella chat about Ryoma's new business and how successful it's likely to be. They're impressed that someone so young is so talented and doing so well. Soon enough, everyone's stuffed, especially the adventurers, who ate so much they can barely move. But when dessert comes out, their love of food somehow gets them back on their feet. Later that day, Ryoma gives Callum and Carla the option to quit if they think working for him isn't a good fit. Before he can even finish, they cut him off, saying they're excited to work for him and can't wait to get started. They've spent time getting to know him and figured out he's a solid guy they won't regret working for. They're ready to hustle and meet his expectations. Ryoma tells them not to push themselves too hard because his family name doesn't mean anything. The siblings think Ryoma's some kind of noble, but he quickly sets the record Straith's not. He's not even related to the Jamil family. He says he's just an adventurer and is excited to kick off the business with them the next day. On opening day, Ryoma hopes they'll get some customers to check out the shop. Once Callum and Carla show up for work, Ryoma heads out to the Adventurers Guild to spread the word about the laundry business. One of the big selling points is that they can clean even the nastiest grime left by goblins. Meanwhile, Eli has magic training, so she can't tag along with Ryoma. They part ways, and Ryoma wishes her good luck with her training. When Ryoma gets to the guild and is about to start promoting the laundry service, he notices Mia and Walana have already beaten him to it. They even put up a poster advertising the shop. Ryoma's impressed, but adds an important detail. They also offer full-body washes and encourage people to give it a shot. After that, he checks out the job board and picks a task to gather herbs. It's a good fit since he can patrol the mines while his slimes collect the herbs. He gets to work, finishes patrolling without any issues, retrieves his slimes, and heads back to town. When he gets back to the shop, he's blown away by the crowd of people waiting outside. He wasn't expecting this many customers on day one, and it throws him off for a second. Realizing he needs to help, he teleports into the shop to join Callum and Carla. Turns out, people were really looking forward to the shop opening. Ryoma jumps in to help serve customers, making things run smoother and ensuring no one has to wait too long. By the end of the day, Ryoma's thrilled with how things went. He notices the siblings work non-stop all day, and doesn't want them to burn out like he did back on Earth. He promises to hire more staff to help out. They suggest he talk to Glycella about finding more workers, and Ryoma agrees. He heads straight to Glycella to discuss hiring extra hands, since the turnout was way bigger than he expected. Later that day, Ryoma goes home and shares the good news about the shop's success with his family. Everyone's stoked to see him making progress. The next day, which is the shop's second day open, more people show up. Folks are super impressed with how their clothes turn out after getting them back. Everyone's hyped and promises to come back for more. Later, Ryoma meets up with Glycella, who's already found some potential workers for him. When Ryoma gets to the room where they're waiting, the group looks kinda bummed as soon as they see him. They weren't expecting a kid to be running the show, but Ryoma doesn't let that get to him. He starts explaining the job, saying it's not hard work and doesn't involve any heavy lifting. He also mentions they'll be working with his slimes and asks them to treat the slimes like coworkers. That totally throws the group off like, seriously, treat slimy blobs as equals? They're not buying it. Ryoma gives them the option to leave if they're not cool with the conditions. And just like that, everyone gets up to bail except for a man and a woman. Ryoma notices something odd about the guy's walking stick and the girl's hairpin, but doesn't say anything. Instead, he asks if they're okay with the job, and they say they are. The man introduces himself as Faye, and the woman is his daughter, Li Ling. Faye mentions his busted leg and worries it might be an issue, but Ryoma doesn't care. He knows his healing slimes can fix it up in no time. Ryoma asks if they've got any questions, and they just ask for a place to stay since they're broke. Ryoma tells them there's a dorm for employees, so they're good to go. Then, out of nowhere, Ryoma asks them who they really are because he's noticed the weapons they're carrying. They realize they've been caught and decide to come clean. Turns out, they're ex-assassins, but aren't in that line of work anymore. Apparently, Glycella already knew this since she's good at reading people. She just let Ryoma figure it out on his own. Faye and Lee explain they're from another country and lost everything in a war, including their home. Their master also died in the war, so they couldn't keep up their assassin gigs. They came to this town to work in the mines, but Faye broke his leg on the job and now needs a cane to get around. Faye and Lee are impressed that Ryoma figured them out. Even though they're ex-assassins, Ryoma's cool with hiring them. Glycella's already given her approval, so Ryoma decides to make it official. He tells them they'll also be acting as bodyguards at the shop because of their combat skills. After that, Ryoma shakes hands with them to seal the deal. Glycella scolds them for carrying their weapons everywhere and tells them to drop their old assassin habits. She vouches for them, saying they're good people, and tells Ryoma to treat them well. Once they leave the guild, they head to the shop where Ryoma introduces them to the Norad siblings. He takes them to the workspace to show how the slimes do their thing. Instead of freaking out, they're blown away. By the end of the day, Ryoma tells Callum and Carla to tally up the day's sales. Then, he asks Faye and Lee to come with him. Using a healing slime, he fixes up Faye's injured leg. Faye's super thankful since he never thought he'd be walking properly again. Turns out, Faye and Lee are flat broke because they spent all their cash bribing their way into the country. Ryoma takes them to the staff quarters and sets them up with separate rooms. The rooms are spacious and nicely furnished, which impresses them even more. When the sales report comes in, Ryoma is shocked to see they made even more money than the day before. He then tells Callum and Carla that Lee and Faye will also act as bodyguards and to factor that into their pay. Lee and Faye are stoked about this. The next day, more customers show up, and the new workers finally get to work. By the end of the day, they've had even more success than before, showing that that business is booming. Ryoma starts thinking about hiring more people, including a cook, so the team doesn't have to stress over meals while working. The workers are happy to see Ryoma cares about them and doesn't want them to burn out. After leaving the shop, Ryoma heads to the Merchants Guild to talk to Glycella about hiring more staff. He tells the old lady he needs 3 more workers and a chef to handle cooking for the team. He doesn't want to pile cooking duties on his already busy workers. The old lady promises to find people who are cool with working around slimes. The next day, she introduces Ryoma to the new hires. The 3 workers are Fina, Maria, and Jane, who all came from the same village looking for jobs. The chef, Selma, used to work at an inn. The new hires agree to stay in the shop's dorms. The old lady suggests Ryoma think about opening another shop in a different town, which is the same thing the Norad siblings mentioned the day before. Ryoma isn't ready for that yet, but she tells him to hit her up whenever he is. With the new hires, Ryoma can handle other tasks without worrying about overworking his staff. The Jamil family is also impressed with how well Ryoma's business is doing. Next up, Serge sets up a meeting with Ryoma. He needs him to hook him up with more iron and waterproof gear. Turns out, the Grell frog season is around the corner, and adventurers are gonna need this stuff to catch those frogs. Ryoma's down to help out, which makes Serge super stoked. Later, Ryoma grabs one of his slimes and feeds it some iron powder, hoping it'll turn into a metal slime. He heads over to the mines to train with his slimes, and Eli tags along. When they get there, Eli pulls out her violin to practice. She's getting ready to tame the limmer birds that'll be showing up at the lake. These birds vibe with music since they use melodies to talk and recognize each other. While Eli's jamming, Ryoma works on making waterproof fabric with his green slimes. When he's done, he tells Eli it'll take a bit to dry. In the meantime, Eli suggests he make dolls that look like them. Using his earth magic, Ryoma whips up a little figurine of Eli. Ryoma keeps going and makes figurines for the whole family. When they see them, they're super impressed. Reinhardt suggests Eli take her figurine with her to school, and she's pumped about the idea since it'll help her not feel lonely. The next day, Ryoma gets back to cranking out waterproof fabric. He doesn't want to leave the slimes unsupervised while they're working. While waiting, Ryoma decides to do some combat training with the slimes since it's been a while. He spars with the giant slime, teaching it some combat moves. Just as he wraps up, he notices the slime that's been eating iron powder is starting to evolve. Once it's done, Ryoma picks it up and realizes it's way heavier than a regular metal slime. Using his appraisal skill, he figures out it's actually an iron slime, not a metal slime. That's when it hits him. Metal slimes need to eat stuff like aluminum oxide and iron oxide to evolve. This gives him a clue on how metal slimes come to exist. Later, Ryoma finds Fina cleaning up the shop and asks her what's up. Fina says they should be helping the cleaner slimes too. Right as she says that, one of the cleaner slimes splits in front of her. Ryoma explains that the slimes are super efficient at their job. After the day's hustle, Ryoma gets the news that they made a ton of money because they scored a bunch of contracts. Ryoma's stoked about how happy his workers are and the fact that no one's having any problems. But then it hits him there's no vacation plan for his crew. He's always been careful not to overwork people and doesn't want to treat them unfairly. So, he brings up the idea of vacations and work shifts, which gets everyone even more pumped about working for him. Ryoma explains that this is all to keep them happy and productive. He thanks them for their hard work, and right then, the chef shows up to announce that dinner's ready. The next day, Ryoma heads to the guild to find some work. The receptionist tells him about something she thinks he'll be into. It's not a guild job, but it's right up his alley. She says there's an adventuring group in town called Pier of Seacom, and they've got a rare type of slime they're looking to sell. The guild turned them down since slimes aren't exactly a big deal, but she knows Ryoma would be interested. Ryoma thanks her for the heads up and heads straight to where the group is staying. He walks into this old tavern and spots the group having drinks. He goes up to them and introduces himself as an adventurer, but one of the guys, Sign, who's totally wasted, interrupts him. Sign doesn't buy that Ryoma's an adventurer and is clearly in a bad mood. When Ryoma points this out, Sign snaps, grabs Ryoma by the neck, and then lets go when he realizes he's losing it. Sign drops to the floor, bawling about how the guild rejected them. 2 of his teammates drag him away, and then the group's leader, Shin, steps up, introduces himself, and asks Ryoma what he wants. Ryoma gets straight to the point, wants to buy their rare slime, and is willing to pay extra if it's something special. They bring out a pot with the slime, so Ryoma can check it out. When he opens it, he sees this red goo staring back at him. He's never seen anything like it and is super intrigued. He tells them he'll pay extra and pulls out 2 gold coins. The group is shocked because that's a lot of money, but Ryoma explains that he thinks it's worth it. The cash will cover everything they need for a while. Before leaving, Ryoma gives them a tip there's a Grell frog season coming up, and they can make money by catching the frogs and selling their valuable parts. After leaving the tavern, Ryoma teleports to his mine to study the slime. He forms a contract with it and checks out its abilities. Turns out, it's a blood slimy, a straight-up vampire slime that feeds on blood. To test it, Ryoma puts it in front of a monster with a slit throat, and the slime goes to town, sucking up all the blood and even sliding inside to clean out the monster's insides. Ryoma figures the slime will be great for taking down monsters, but he's sure it'll have other uses too. Later, Eli invites Ryoma to join her for a a taming training session. The next day, Ryoma takes Eli and the rest of the family to the training grounds. Elise tells Ryoma she's going to learn a skill called share sensation, which lets her pick up info through her familiar. To pull this off, she needs to form a link with the creature. For this training, Ryoma and Eli are working with birds. They let the birds out of the cage, make contracts with them, and then try to create a mental connection. Ryoma nails it first and can basically see through the bird's eyes. It feels super weird at first, so they tell him to close his eyes, which helps. Not long after, Eli figures it out too, and soon they're both controlling the birds like pros. Reinbach is impressed that they picked up the skill so fast. Elise points out that Ryoma probably has a knack for bird-type monsters. Turns out, taming magicians have different strengths, and not every magician can tame every type of monster. Reinbach, for example, is good with scaled monsters. He can't handle a lot of familiars at once, but the ones he does have are super strong. Reinhardt, on the other hand, can tame four-legged monsters but doesn't have any luck with birds. To show Ryoma what kind of familiar she has, Elise decides to flex a little. She summons a Fenrir, which freaks the kids out at first, but she tells them it's totally safe. Elise admits Fenrirs are crazy strong and can even use ice magic. On top of the 20 Fenrirs she has, she's also got 100 other wolf-type familiars. Elise is basically showing off, listing all the monsters she's tamed, and even her husband feels a bit intimidated. Ryoma is blown away by everything he's learning and realizes he's surrounded by some seriously amazing people. Elise laughs and tells him that Reinbach is on another level entirely. He's way ahead of them. Apparently, Reinbach only has around 20 familiars, but half of them are dragons. This completely shocks Ryoma, and Reinbach just chuckles. He explains that the first monster he ever tamed was a powerful dragon, and the other dragons basically followed its lead, but he only summons them when it's absolutely necessary because they can cause a ton of chaos. The dragons live up in the family's mountains, keeping other monsters from coming down. After all this bragging, Elise suggests they get back to training, and everyone agrees. Over the next few days, Ryoma keeps practicing with Eli, while also working on making waterproof fabric. Not long after, some adventurers let Ryoma know that it's frog season. They ask him where he got the waterproof outfit they saw him wearing before. He tells them they can get something similar at the Morgan Trading Company. The adventurers thank him and say they're heading there right away. Later on, Elise tells Ryoma they're heading to the lake in a couple of days to tame some lemur birds. When Ryoma hears this, he grabs his guitar and starts practicing for the big day. While he's at it, he starts to realize that his time with Eli and her family is coming to an end. When the day finally comes, they start walking to the lake. At some point, Eli wonders how Ryoma manages to keep up with the adults. The only thing they can figure is that Ryoma's got crazy stamina. Along the way, they bump into an adventuring crew called Pier of Sikkim. The group is stoked to see Ryoma and thanks him for the heads up about the frog season. Sign also takes the chance to apologize for acting like a jerk before, blaming it on the booze. When they get to the lake, they spot a guy trying to tame the lemur birds, while other adventurers are busy catching frogs. The guy starts playing his instrument, hoping the birds will come to him, but when they don't, he loses it. He pulls out his sword and storms into the water, ready to take the birds down, but the dude quickly realizes he's in way over his head when the birds start attacking him with their wind magic. Instead of running back to the shore, which is closer, the guy panics and heads toward Ryoma and the Jamil family. The birds keep chasing him. Just as it looks like the guy's about to get wrecked, Ryoma steps in and creates a wall to protect him. Suddenly, everyone except Ryoma starts hearing this loud, painful ringing in their heads. Ryoma stays calm, looks around, and figures out that the leader of the birds is the one making the noise. Using his magic, he isolates the bird and shuts down the sound. The bird realizes it's been beaten and backs off, taking the rest of the flock with it. Once the birds are gone, everyone feels normal again. Reinhardt tells Camille to check on the guy who got attacked, and Reinbach explains to Ryoma that the leader of the birds is called the nightmare lemur bird. It's a rare species that only shows up every 10 years or so. These birds use dark and wind magic to mess with people's minds, causing hallucinations. Ryoma figures out that his high-level resistance to mental pain is what kept him from being affected by the bird's sound. Even so, he realizes he needs to stay on his toes, since he didn't even notice he was under attack at first. Now that the birds are gone, all they can do is wait and hope they come back. So, Eli brings up that she and Ryoma are gonna part ways soon, and Ryoma's totally caught off guard dude doesn't even know what to say. Eli breaks the awkward silence by asking if Ryoma's gonna write her letters. Hughes notices Ryoma's struggling and decides to step in. He leans in and tells Ryoma to give Eli a hug, but Hughes, being Hughes, takes it too far and demonstrates by hugging a tree and even kissing it. Of course, this earns him a well-deserved punch in the gut for being so cringy. Thankfully, the birds they've been waiting for show up, including the one Ryoma had subdued earlier. Ryoma thinks about stepping back since the bird might be sketched out by him and ruin Eli's taming process, but Eli's chill about it and tells him to stay. She's not about to blame him if things go south anyway. So, Eli steps up and starts playing her violin. The music's so good that the birds start grooving to it, clearly feeling the vibe. They get closer, and Ryoma reminds her to seal the deal with a contract. Eli doesn't waste any time and locks in 9 birds all at once. Pretty impressive. After Eli's done, Ryoma decides it's his turn. He grabs his guitar and admits he's not as talented as Eli but wants to give it a shot. He starts strumming, and soon everyone's attention is on him. Even the birds are drawn in, including the so-called nightmare bird that he thought hated him. Ryoma ends up forming a contract with it and a bunch of others, and the crowd claps for him like he's some kind of rock star. Sure, Eli just did the same thing, but hey, he's the main character. What do you expect? While they're chatting about all this, they notice one bird looks a little different from the rest. Eli uses her appraisal skill and figures out something important. The bird's a rare advanced species, like the nightmare bird, but this one's called a phantom limmer bird. Instead of dark magic, it uses light magic. Reinhardt's dad is super impressed because, finding one rare bird is cool, but two? That's next level. Reinhardt tries to touch the bird, but it freaks out and screams at him, which makes sense since he's not exactly a bird-taming magician. That night, the family throws a big party to celebrate Eli's success and say goodbye to Ryoma. During the party, Ryoma and Eli sneak off to have a private chat in a room. Eli and her family are leaving in the morning, so they need to talk before then. Ryoma mentions he'll be living closer to the mines after they leave, saying it'll make his patrol work easier. Eli opens up to Ryoma, saying she's never really had a friend. When she was younger, she accidentally froze an older boy who came to her house to teach her magic. Her family thawed him out, so he was fine, but he spread rumors about her being dangerous. Since then, people have been scared of her, and she's struggled to make friends. Eli asks Ryoma if he's scared of her. He tells her he's not, and she assures him she's not scared of him either. Then Eli gives Ryoma a box. Inside, there's a necklace with a ruby pendant. It's the same necklace Elise gave Eli on her 10th birthday, and now she wants Ryoma to have it. The pendant is a magic stone, which makes the necklace powerful and valuable. Ryoma doesn't want to take it, but Eli insists. She says she's not giving it to him, just asking him to hold on to it as a good luck charm. It's her way of saying they'll meet again. Ryoma thanks her, and then realizes he should give her something too. After thinking it over, he decides to give her 2 of his slimes. Eli is thrilled and thanks Ryoma for trusting her. She promises to take good care of his slimes while he's away. The night passes, and morning comes. It's time for Eli's family to leave. The staff all say goodbye to Ryoma, telling him they've enjoyed having him around. Ryoma thanks them for their support. Elise reminds him not to forget about the letter thing. Once the adults finish their goodbyes, they leave Eli and Ryoma to talk privately. Eli tells Ryoma not to treat her like a stranger anymore, and suggests he call her Elia instead of my lady. She promises to work hard in school so she can make him proud. Instead of saying goodbye, Eli tells Ryoma they'll see each other again. Then she joins her family in the carriage, with the 2 slimes sitting beside her. Ryoma is determined to face life head-on and tackle any challenge that comes his way. The season ends with Ryoma promising to work hard, just like Eli, to make his life better than it was before.